All right, guys. So let's take a look at TestOut and Canvas and what's happening there. Boy, last semester, it really got ridiculous for me. However, I will say part of that was actually having pneumonia for 8 weeks and the effects that lasted much longer than that, and having to deal with that really made it impossible to do the kind of management I had to do with Canvas to make it work. And it's really TestOut's fault. That is honestly one of the reasons why I'm looking at something else, because their integration really does not work well. All right, so I went to TestOut.com and you can log in straight into the TestOut site. I will be, so, listen up. I will be pulling the scores into Canvas, right? So I will pull those scores into Canvas. So if you wanted, you could just come to TestOut and deal with that interface all the time. I will be making some custom exams, but again, those will also be accessible right here in the TestOut interface. So, you have your different classes listed, but there's the course that currently no one's enrolled in. But Network Systems 1, Spring 2022, right? So I'm going to go to my products for me, and I'm going to go to, that's IT fundamentals. This is all the different stuff I get through them. That's, make sure that's, see, this is the 5.0. I need to get the 6.0, but we'll just jump into the 5.0 for now. Yeah, that's where the class is listed under, so we're good. Okay, so here we are. I was looking at objectives. That'll be another thing that I talk about, but let's jump up here to the introduction. I want to show you, and I'll have this written out. I do have it written out. I'll just put it in there into Canvas so you can see it. What do you need to do? Where is your grade going to come from? How is that going to be figured? Now, the thing that Canvas is going to give us is the ability to check that grade so that you can go and look at that grade. That's much more important to you than me. Your grade is important to me when it's time for me to do grades and enter a grade for you at the end of class. For you, this is a lot more important. So we're not going to do zero. I'm not going to count zero for anything, but networking basics is really important. So these are all the videos, right? So these are the things that are the lectures. I don't count any of those. I don't take those for scores. But again, if you're really serious about this, you're going to listen to my lecture, and then you're probably going to listen to theirs at twice the speed or something. I try to cover the same things, but there's some things that I find very important that I see students have a hard time grasping. So I'll cover it, I'll cover it, I'll cover it, right? I'll do it 3 different ways, talk about it 3 separate times, where they just go, here it is, boom. That's our one way that we're describing it, and we're going to move on. Right. And so they can be valuable to you, or they may not be, but they're not part of your score. Just look for the play button, not part of your score. The fact sheets are, and the fact sheets are, they're a little misnomer here. They're a little deceptive because you click on it. It doesn't actually record how much time you spent here. So a student definitely could just go, blah, blah, blah. I clicked on it. I'm going to get a score for that. And that is key, right? If you're doing that, what are you doing, right? You need to know this stuff. I'm telling you, I should be able to say to any student after the first week, what does it mean to have an intranet? And you can either tell me verbatim what that says, or you can tell me what an intranet is, as opposed to an extranet, as opposed to an internet, because that's a fundamental, easy topics that if you haven't gotten, later on it's going to hurt you, right? So you need to be honest as you're reviewing this information and going, did I learn that? If he was to ask me to give a description of client server and what it's beneficial to and what it's not beneficial to, could I tell him? Right. Now, that's just a serious way to gauge yourself, right? Because basically what's going to come later is a bunch of study on tests, right? I'm studying this, I'm studying this, I'm studying this on tests. And anything that you can memorize as you go through it is going to save you time when you get to those tests. I guess the way I'd put it is, when you decide to go after a certification like this, testing over and over again is the way you prep. And how you know whether or not you know the information is if you guessed or not, right? I think it's this. Then you don't know it well enough if you think it's that. You need to be able to go, oh, that's the answer, right? And that's what the testing helps you do. So the first time you go through those tests, I'll mention this in another video, it's not that way. It's like, oh, I don't know the answer to that one. And that's usually where you would say, let me just pause here for a minute on this test and go learn what that is, and then come back and select the right answer. And it's slow. That's a slow process. It takes hours. But by the time you go through it once, doing it that way, having done it that way many times, the next one is so much easier. It's like, I can't remember what that is, right? And then you're just boning up on it. It's a much quicker way. You're not trying to memorize questions. You're trying to understand the information. So not just looking at these fact sheets is vital. And that's something that I cannot teach you, and no instructor or professor or doctor can. Whether or not you read that information and try to get it in your head is something you have to do. I can tell you how important it is, like I've said many times, but I cannot force you to do that. Sure, I guess I could make a test up that says on the third line of peer-to-peer networking, what did it say? But that's the wrong focus, right? That's not what I should be doing for you as an instructor. And so you need to learn this as much as you can. Read something, put it in your own words. When you're studying this, go, okay, host role. What the heck does host? Okay, host means device. So device role. So we can break down network classification by what the device is doing, right? I'm rephrasing what host role means. Okay, so it can be peer-to-peer. What does peer-to-peer mean? Well, if we're peers, that means we're equals. Okay, so computer is equal to equal. So they're both doing the same thing, right? You're describing it to yourself so that you go, I understand this, right? I could tell my mother, my grandma, my father what that meant. Yeah, I know some of you are freaking out right now. Like, you got to go to that level. This is what you want to do with your life, right? There is some very strong similarities between what a doctor does and what somebody who is dealing with networking and all the other things I showed you in the other video. There's a real similarities, because you need to know the parts well enough to go, that part's broken. And that's what a doctor goes, right? Oh, well, actually that gland does this thing, so we better do this test, right? They're just troubleshooting you. I say just, the human body is a lot more complex than the internet is, but it's the same kind of process. So you're going to look at the fact sheets. I will give you a score. You get a check mark, I will give you a score for that. And then you're going to do the practice questions. These practice questions, I am going to give you a score for, but it is one of these things where you get to do important. I should have flashing red, important. You get to do these over and over again. And so one of the things to wrap your head around is when you're trying to learn information, as opposed to trying to tell somebody whether or not you know the information. When you're trying to learn the information, you need to review, right? That's how you do it. And again, I've told you this, tests is the way we do that. So you take this, you take this, you take this. Now, again, the point is not to memorize the question, because they could rearrange that question and then you wouldn't know what to do. The point is to go, do I know which of the following geographical network types is made up of an interconnection of LANs? I wonder. Right, let's check our answer. Hey, a campus area network, I got it wrong. Right, your explanation gives you everything you need. And so you're not just taking this once. They have set this up so that when you get it wrong or right, you say check answer, and then you read this, go, okay, so why is this a campus area network as opposed to a wide area network? And then they give you the definitions of all of them. And you go, oh, okay, I get it. Let's move on to the next one. So then you could come back in, right? It's only got 4 questions, guys. Then you come back in and you take it again and you get them all right. And you get 100 on it. I do have people ask me that because, yeah, go ahead and score me. I totally failed. Right? Because tests are tests. You're not supposed to do them over again. At the end of each of these chapters, they're just going to test you over some of the information, not all of it. And I will basically take your score for that. So you're going to do that enough to get 100% on it, on each of those sections. Right, so I'm not taking scores for, let me move down to the OSI model. So I'm not taking scores for the videos that you listen to the talking heads on. I am taking scores for the fact sheets. I am taking scores for the practice questions. And then there's these. Notice this does not have a play button. This is a video, and you might see a face to begin with. Oh, that's loud.
In this demonstration, we're going to explore some common network services. Remember, network service is provided by a server. The services are consumed by the clients on the network, which are typically your workstations.
Times 2.
I've logged into this Windows server on an administrative network. Several network services, so let's look at what they are. Go down to the search box and enter Server Manager. By default, Server Manager launches with Windows Server, but I wanted to show you how to find and open it from here if it's not already open. I'm going to click on Tools to expand it, and then look at the different roles that are on this server. We can see the list of all the network services that are...
Yeah, that might drive you nuts, but I can actually understand what it's saying. You can move that up, you can turn CC on, you can make it full screen, but these are showing you a demo that is very hard for me to do in class, right? I gotta get the server out, right? Oh, let me show you what this server is. And then people don't pay attention anyway. So I'm giving you scores for these too. Those are demos. So that is a demo that basically the person is showing you, hey, this is where this stuff is. Sweet. A lot of demos, if you took 118, you know, will actually lead into what you have to do in a lab. There are not as many labs in networking as there was in the other class, but you will see them. So I take a score from here, take a score from here. I'm not seeing any labs in this one. Let's go down to networking devices. This is the other thing I'm taking scores for, right? I'm taking scores for labs. So the only thing I'm not taking a score for, let's simplify it, right, is the play button. Do everything else. Do everything until you get 100. Don't do a lab 9 times. If you're having trouble with a lab, I say this every single semester. I don't know how many times I say this. I really dislike getting emails from students that are like, I have done this lab 9 times. And then my question to them is, why? Why did you do that 9 times? How long did that take you to do that 9 times? I know there's like, I got to get this. I got to get this. There's a pride factor, and that's great. That's great. That's a nice hunger to have within you. But do it, right? This is the way I would do a lab. I would look at this. If I read the information, now I'm trying to apply the information, and I would start the lab. And I would try to get that right. So I'm teaching you the proper way. This is the proper way to do a lab. I'm going to look at this scenario here that was just on the other screen. It's the same stuff. And I'm going to try to get this right based on what I have in my head. Now, when I fail to be able to do that, then I'm going to hit done. And it's going to say, you know what, you failed these things. And I'm going to, oh, dang it. Then I'm going to read the explanation. Actually read this. This is your feedback. This is not any different than if we were in class and you were doing this and I was like, well, see, you actually forgot that you're looking for the most advanced one. And so a PCIe slot, not a PCI slot, it's the one that you wanted to put that into. Right now, that's much shorter. This is actually saying, hey, in order to complete this correctly, this is what you have to do. And so it's actually telling you, this is what you got wrong. And if it's super easy, right, don't decide to do this. In other words, go back in, start it, and go, I should have selected this. Boom, now I'm done. But if it's not, and it's more complicated, then yeah, then you actually would, let me copy that, let me print this, and let me go step by step through what they want me to do. Now, I do have students cheat on this, and there's no way for me to know if they cheated. How would you cheat? Well, you just come in it, start it, print this off, lay down the paper next to you or copy paste it, and then start the lab and go step by step down through each one. And you're like, oh, that saved me time. I just follow the steps and I'm done. When a person follows steps, they normally don't get the information. So if you want to be honest with yourself, you want to learn, you do want to be honest with yourself. You want to really learn it, you try it first. And then when you fail it, you look at what they said you did wrong. And you're honest with yourself and you go, oh, I get that. I should have done this instead. You go back in and do that. Or I have no clue of what you're talking about. Right? That's a key to, I may be missing other information from this section. But you would print that and then you would follow step by step. There's a difference in the frame of mind. If you do that just straight off first, if you just do that first, then your mind is not in the right learning mode. When you try to get it right and you fail, and then you print it off and follow it, your mind is, I need to understand this, instead of I need to get this done. And there's a huge difference in the learning process. All right, so to sum it up, you're going to do the fact sheets. That's the textbook. You're going to do the labs as often as you need to get them done and get 100. If you get through the third time and the process I've just shown you didn't work, then you need to email me if there's no way for us to meet in class. And it's always good to email me anyway. So I get going in class and I don't even think about it. So it's good to email me and then in class go, hey, can we do that lab? The one that was, I've done that 3 times. And then I pull it up and we do it in class. And very rarely is there one that's just broken. It does happen, but very rarely. And then again, the other things that you're doing are the demos, and those little icons are these arrows and screens. You get that stuff done and you're going to have a C in this class. So just like 118, we got a lot of units to go through, 16 units. I won't be able to cover all that information in class because some things you really need to focus on more. And so we'll spend some weeks on those things, but I'll have all the due dates of, hey, you need to get this stuff done. We only have 16 weeks in a semester. So you got to get through each one of these units a week. And some of this we're going to be reviewing on, like IP configuration usually confuses the heck out of people. And so when we do IP configuration, I usually come back in the next week and try to see where you guys are and then we'll do it again, right? The same thing happens in routing and some of that happens in wireless networking. And so you're going to go through all this. We just won't cover each one in class. So you need to be aware of that. All right, that's where your score's coming from. Again, you get a C. If you get all that done, the rest of your score is going to come from your test, your final, and that'll bump you to a B or an A, depending on how well you do in that. So let's go over, actually, let me stop this video and then we'll look at Canvas. That way I'm splitting the video up. Make it a little shorter because that was long.